Okay, so we are going to begin our dissection of the rat. This rat is a male rat. I can tell because I can see the scrotum here. Some other features that we can see the incisors right here, the little teeth that are used for slicing through food. We can see the nares, which are the openings into the nose. We can see where the eyes are, the pinnae are the ears here. So that's just some external features that we would look for. We have another rat out here. This is a female rat. I can tell because there is no scrotum with this female rat. So we're going to start the dissection of our rat here. These rats, they already have an incision in them. They come this way, so I know how deep I need to cut. I'll try and turn this here so you can see how deep I'll need to cut. The skin comes down to here, the skin and muscle, and the organs are underneath there. So I don't need to use a scalpel in this case. I'm going to use these dissecting scissors, and I'm going to kind of try to cut towards the midline and stay up above the organs here so I don't damage any organs. So I'm going to kind of pull this up a little bit, grab the scissors, and cut up. Again, making sure to be careful that I don't cut too deep. Cut up as far as I can up into the neck area, and then down here. Okay, so cut them open. I'm going to pull this apart and take a look at what I've got here. And it looks like I stayed above the rib cage in the thoracic cavity, right? The thoracic cavity is going to be this chest cavity here. So I stayed above that, so I did not damage anything below it. And so we're going to take a look at that in just a second. What I need to do now is cut this open so that I can lay the skin back so that we can get a better look at the organs. All right. What we did here is we finished opening up the rat so that we could find all of the internal organs and point them out for you. So I'm going to start up here in the neck region, right here, this tube right here, and you can see hopefully that it's got some little rings around it. Those are rings of cartilage. That is the larynx. You guys are probably more familiar with the term windpipe. But this is the larynx. This brings air that you've breathed in down to your lungs. All right, so this is the larynx. Now, if I pull underneath the larynx, there's another tube that sits right behind or deep to the larynx, to use some of our directional terminology. This is the esophagus. The esophagus is the tube that brings food that we've swallowed down to our stomach. Okay, so we just see those two to start. Now we come down into here. We're in the thoracic cavity, so we're moving inferiorly through the rat. We're going to see this dark brown organ right here. That is the heart. And sitting on top of the heart is this tissue right here. This is a gland called the thymus gland. The thymus gland is where important cells that are part of your immune system that are called T cells mature. And what they do in there is they learn to determine whether a particular cell came from you or if it does not belong in your body, so that it learns to attack something that is foreign. All right. What we have on this side, this is one of the lungs. This is going to be the right lung. This is the anatomical right of this rat. And then the left lung is going to be over here. And in the rat, it's kind of deep to the heart, but for us, it's the two lungs sit laterally to the heart, not deep to the heart. They'll be on either side with the heart sitting medially. So that is the heart. Now, there is a thin flap of muscle that we had to cut through that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity, or the abdominal pelvic cavity. And that's this right here. This is the diaphragm, is this thin sheet of muscle that sits right on top of this big brown organ right here. This is the liver. It's really easy to identify within any organism. It's the biggest organ, most obvious organ in the abdominal pelvic cavity. The diaphragm plays a role in expanding and contracting the thoracic cavity for your breathing, so it plays a role in your breathing mechanics. All right, this is the liver. The liver does a whole lot of things in the body. It detoxifies alcohol and other poisons. It is a place where red blood cells are broken down. There's all kinds of things that go on in the liver that we'll spend more time on in the digestive system. One other thing it does is it makes something called bile, which is a fluid that helps us digest our fats that we eat. All right, if I lift up the liver to expose underneath it, first of all of this yellow stuff that you see here, that is fat. That's fat tissue. All right, so I'm going to get that out of the way so that we can see a little bit better down in here. This is still liver right here and right here. These are different lobes of the liver. But this organ right here, it comes down. It's kind of J-shaped. This is the stomach right here, where the beginnings of protein digestion occur. The stomach also serves to store food for us, among other things. Very little absorption of any nutrients occurs through the stomach. Only water, alcohol, and aspirin can pass through there. Okay, now, lifting up the stomach, I see coming down here on the anatomical left, this is the spleen. Sometimes it sits a little more over this direction, and sometimes it's a little darker red in color. The spleen serves the function of storing extra red blood cells. Okay, this tissue right here that looks kind of like right here, that looks kind of like chewed up gum, that is the pancreas. The pancreas does all kinds of things. It makes insulin, it makes glucagon, it produces all kinds of digestive enzymes that help us digest carbohydrates and proteins and lipids, and it sends all of those enzymes into this next organ that is attached to the stomach, which is the small intestine. So here is my stomach again. Get the liver out of the way. Here is my stomach, and the stomach comes over and it is attached to the small intestine. This first section of the small intestine is called the duodenum. And the duodenum is where a lot of the chemical digestion of your food takes place. The middle section of the small intestine is the ileum, and the end of it that connects to the large intestine, so right around here, that is going to be called the JEJUNUM. So the small intestine is where a lot of the digestion of carbs and lipids and proteins, the chemical digestion of those things, most of it takes place in the small intestine, as well as most of the absorption of the nutrients from the food that we eat occurs through the wall of the small intestine into the bloodstream. So the small intestine sits here. This thicker diameter coiled up tube over here on the other side, this is the large intestine. And the large intestine is responsible for absorbing any water that's left from all the food that you've eaten, and it starts to produce feces or fecal materials made and stored in the large intestine. It's got a really crappy job. Yes, and the fecal material then passes into the rectum, which is this tube that runs inferiorly to the anus, and the rectum will store fecal material as well. Down here, if I pull this back, we have this little, can you see it okay? This little sac right here is the urinary bladder. Make sure you call it urinary bladder, because rats don't have a gallbladder, but we do. So if you just say bladder, Mrs. Flores and I are going to say, which one? And take some points off. Okay, so this is your urinary bladder right here. Again, all this yellow tissue here is fat. These coiled up tubes right here are the seminiferous tubules of the rat. They carry the sperm from the testes. Okay, and then lastly, a couple other parts of the urinary system. The urinary bladder was the first part. We have kidneys, and there's a kidney on either side. So these kidneys, there's one on the left, and there's one right here on the right. They're almost always encapsulated in fat or enclosed in fat. Because there's one on each side, we say the kidneys are bilateral. If we were to say the right kidney and the right lung, which term would that be? ipsilateral. If we were to say the right kidney and the left lung, that would be contralateral. All right, now, the kidneys are responsible for filtering our blood, and when they do that, they produce urine. So they are part of the urinary system. The urine will travel down these tiny little tubes, and they're a lot bigger in bigger organisms, but this little tube right here is called the ureter, and that will actually carry the urine that's made in the kidney all the way down to the urinary bladder, down here, okay? And the urinary bladder is capable of expanding and storing urine until it is to be expelled from the body. So, I believe that is all of the parts of the rat.